How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone is fine. Thank you for being with Love, Truth, and Peace. This is going to be a wonderful show for all of us. Welcome, everyone in the United States and around the world. I am Dr. Melida Harris Barrow, coming to you live from Miami. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Peace, a program dedicated to equip nations and people with the knowledge and tools they need to improve, create, build, prosper, and change their environment so that they can effectively lead to a better future. I would like to introduce my co-host Marcelleus Hall and our special guest, Miss Adeng Lee from South Sudan, Africa, founder of Opportunities for South Sudanese Initiative. And from the United States, Eddie Johnson, entrepreneur, activist, ex-NFL player, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And Brittany Smith, a registered respiratory care practitioner, helping everyone. Brittany is also a vocal speaker of protecting human rights and LGBTQ advocate. The focus today will be change is coming through youth activism. We will elaborate on incarceration, police brutality, and the Jim Crow laws that are still being practiced today. The recent events of police brutality has sparked a movement led mainly by this new generation for change in the criminal justice system and the end of systematic racism and oppression of the Black community and population. Welcome once again to Love, Truth, and Peace.
Yes,
Hello, Eddie Johnson. How are you?
How you doing, doctor?
I am doing wonderful. You know, we're going to start with you because you have so much in your head that you have to release today. And I want you to release everything. I want everybody to release everything that's been stuck in here. This is a great opportunity for us today to talk about all the things that I've mentioned today. Let's start with you. Let's start with police brutality here in the United States, and I have to say, and around the world, because this is not just happening here in America; it is happening worldwide. Let's talk about that.
Okay, absolutely. Well, obviously, you know that police brutality has been a huge problem for African Americans for years. The number one thing is uh, when a police officer is basically when you're stopping an African American, usually you never know if you're going to come home or not, and that's the main thing.
Mhm.
We as African Americans here in the United States have obviously come together. Now, this hasn't all been African Americans, but we have came together. There's a lot of meetings going on with African Americans, and it's kind of scary because we don't know if we need to have guns ourselves. I talk to a lot of our friends, and they're going out buying guns. You hear about a lot of the white people buying guns. You just don't know. There's a lot of African Americans buying guns nowadays because you
Yeah.
just don't know. And the bad part about that, we feel wholeheartedly that the police are associated with white supremacy. And
Mhm.
so to have that case not going home when you get pulled over has been a big issue for
Mhm.
all of us here in the United States.
Yes, it is. And I would like for Brittany to step in. Go ahead, Brittany.
Yes,
Police brutality. Yes.
police brutality. Yes, as Mr. Johnson was saying, police brutality is an issue here in America. And as I try to tell my friends, I live in an area that's not predominantly Black. And it's been great seeing the protesters come out because I'm seeing all different races. I'm seeing Mexican, Latinos, I'm
That's
seeing
right.
white people come out because they're finally seeing, this is an issue. Um, and it's not just affecting Black race, it's affecting all races, which is great to see. But Black people do disproportionately get affected by police brutality. And it's not cool. It's not cool that you can be walking down the street and then you can get beat up by the people supposed to protect you. And I do like to say, I'm going to be one of those people that, you know, yes, it's not all police officers, but we are in a system where it's broken to where I need the good cops to be able to reprimand bad cops. There needs to be accountability because the good cops are being outshadowed by the happenings that are going on. And it needs to change. There needs to be some type of change in the structuring. There needs to be some type of change in how these people can be held accountable. And I'm glad to see people talking about it.
Yes, I'm glad that they're talking about it too, because oftentimes we look away. And I want to mention this too, because I've been doing a lot of research, more research. I've always done research, but more research recently about police brutality, about what's happening in the Black community. And I am just totally disturbed. And I want to also let the audience know that I've been working as a peace ambassador for, I think I was 12 years old, honestly. And I'm from Panama City, for those that don't know, from Panama City, Panama, Central America. And the problem that we're having here in America is not just an American problem or issue. This is a world issue. And I want to put this on the table because Adeng Leak is from South Sudan. And I want to bring her in this conversation about police brutality, because this is not an American problem. And this is why you're seeing that the world is participating in this protest. Adeng, would you like to elaborate more on that?
Yeah, sure. We are just, I'm from South Sudan, definitely is the youngest country in the world. We got our independence 2011. Yes, and we have seen a lot of things that had been happening in the US on police brutality. And I can say that it's not only in the US that is happening, it's also in South Sudan, where the system cannot control what is happening, the violence that is happening now in the country. And we have been, like, let me talk on behalf of my brothers and sisters. We have been killed, we have been raped, we have been robbed at night, land grabbing, and all these things by our own brothers, definitely. And as we know, South Sudan and Sudan had been going through a long war, decades of war, civil war. And it has divided us as South Sudanese by ourselves, and it had divided us in terms of tribes and in terms of also the religion and in terms of so many things. So there's so many insecurity.
I'm sorry, what is the religion there, Adeng?
Yeah, in South Sudan is Christian and also traditional religion. Where is a practice that is happening in the villages and the communities. And also we have Islam, but Islam is not as high as Christianity. But as we were united with Sudan, we were controlled by the Islamic regime and also the Sharia law. So we saw the differences, and we saw the racism, and we saw different kind of, violence even towards us as South Sudanese before we got our independence. So police brutality is just something that as African, we have felt it when it's happening in the US. And that's why everybody is saying Black Lives Matters. Everybody's saying this is really bad, and we are standing with the US. And we are trying to fight our own here, and we will help also the US to fight this on, because we are one. Thank you so much.
Right. Go ahead, Marcelleus, go ahead.
I just want to say something real quick for the lady. She's talking about South Sudan. I want to highlight a couple things on South Sudan and the history, so that our listeners, our viewers understand the magnitude of what this woman is talking about, because I don't really think people understand the graveness of the situation. It is, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds, if not thousands times worse than you can imagine in comparison to America. Just to give you a backdrop, number one, they're number 7 on the lowest mortality rate for all countries in the world. The average mortality rate there in that country is 58 years old. Okay. So when we think about what that is in comparison to America, that was the average mortality rate dating back to over 50 years ago. So you see how grave it is. But then number two, she brought up a great point when she talked about the Islamic and the Christian religions there. And I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware. Now, normally we know when we talk about slavery, we think about the Atlantic trade rate, which happened in the 1500s to the 1800s. However, what needs to really be highlighted is the Arabic slave trade, which was so much worse than the transatlantic for the Europeans, and then what the Portuguese brought later as well, bringing people to Brazil and into Florida. 40 million. 40 million. The first slave was transported in 100 AD, and it's still happening today in Libya. So even though we have suffered in America for 400 years, understand that people in regions like Sudan and over there, Somalia, Ethiopia, they have suffered for almost 2,000 years under slavery, under the Islamic law. So I just think that people need to understand that, because we hear 400 in America all the time. We're like, oh my God, 400, 400.
Yes.
Let's go over there to that side of Africa. We're talking almost 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there so people understand the magnitude of what she's talking about, what's going on.
Yeah.
Great point. Go. You wanted to say something, Eddie?
No, that's an absolutely great point, because I have quite a few Sudanian friends that are here, and a lot of friends from Nigeria, and they do not like to go back home, only because of what's happening in a lot of those areas, and it affects the whole region of a lot of those areas. So they understand what's going on out here. They tell me it's not as bad as back home, but they definitely understand what's going on here. And is severe all over the world. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And this is why America are so hypocritical, because there was a time when their forefathers came here on ships, and they changed their names, many of them, in order to protect themselves. They brought their children, they brought their mother, they brought everyone else. And today they're saying that this is their country. I don't know how they can even say that, that this is a white country, and how they can say that this country does not belong to the natives. The natives are also suffering in this country. They're killing the natives in this country. They are abusing, and there's so many children. This is not talked about in the media, but there's so many children that are missing. Thousands of children are missing in the Native community. I want us to talk about before I go there, I wanted to ask Adeng that the independence came in 2011, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, Marcel, an independent country is not really independent. It's independent by name. Why? Because the law of the colonializers still exists there. The school system is still in practice while the colonializers was there. So by saying that the country is independent, it really means nothing. Nothing. It doesn't mean anything, because they're still following. Look at Nigeria. In the court system, they're still wearing the blonde wig or the white wig. I mean, why? Why are you still in the system of your oppressors? You understand? We have to change these things. You cannot be independent and still practicing the law that your oppressors have given you. It makes no sense.
Sure.
So is that happening in Sudan?
Yeah, so far we are still struggling with the colonialism, because the system, we are still using British system. And then also not to forget that we have been also colonized by Turkey Egyptians, which we use also Arabic as a language. So when we got our independence, we were confused between English, Arabic, and Swahili. So Swahili is a language that is not so popular in South Sudan. But because our leaders has stayed in the eastern, during the refugee time, during the war, the civil war. They were staying in the East African countries, and then they were using Swahili as a language. And for example, me, I stayed in Sudan. I speak Arabic fluently. So when I came to South Sudan, and then we had to change everything to English, it became like, oh, what is going on? And also we are not practicing anymore the Sharia law. We are not. We are only practicing. I mean, we are only using the British. What is it called? The British education, and also we have been using also the historical information about what happened during the civil war and how the British colonized us and how the Turkey Egyptian colonized us. So there's so much confusion between us as a citizen. So as we got our independence, we're supposed to have our own syllabus, our own what is it called, books, our own the subjects to study, and we're supposed to have our own independent, because we got independent. It is not it's just a name, as you said, but we are not independent as a country yet, and we are still relying in so many countries to speak in the peace talk. You see, we have also the impact of the American and the British and so many countries during the peace talk. And also we have the neighboring country also controlling the peace processes, which is not making us actually independent or even in peace up to now. So I think we, as an independent country, we need to sit with ourselves and to find a solution of how to get out of this colonialism rule that has affected us. And also, I don't want to get out of the topic. We need a lot of
Go ahead.
We need a lot of trauma healing, because a lot of us, we are traumatized with the war. I have not witnessed the war myself, but I stayed in Sudan where discrimination was there also, racism were there. But let me say that we didn't take it as serious as now, because now we know our rights. We know that this one was racism, this one was, discrimination. So this thing, South Sudan really need to sit and know what is independent and what do we need to do as an independent country.
Exactly. I want to show the audience this picture that I'm about to, I'm going to put up now. I need you to look at that picture for a minute. Take a look at this picture. When I saw this picture, I went back to slavery. Of all the pictures that I've seen, it took me back because this was the same image that I saw of many other pictures during slavery, when the plantation owner always had someone, I forgot the name that they call them. Do you remember that name that they called those, the overseers?
The overseers. The
overseers, yes. When I look at that picture, it was, these are things that we don't see on a daily basis because we're not in that environment. And this picture was taken in Louisiana State Penitentiary back in 2011. Now, the reason I brought up the fact that the colonializers might have given you your independence, but one of the things that they didn't give you was your freedom.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You see, he only gave you what you thought you wanted or what you want, but he did not give you your freedom. Actually, you're now working for him. He doesn't have to be on the plantation anymore. You understand? He is having other leaders, Black leaders, to oversee the plantation. Now, in Louisiana, the picture that I just showed you has ceremoniously buried another vintage of Jim Crow in the United States, removing his 120 years old perch from the jury boxes of our criminal courthouses throughout the state. Now, on November 6, 2018, listen to this carefully, 2018, Louisiana became the 49th state to require unanimous juries in all felony trials. Now, Oregon now stands alone and is already feeling immense pressure to follow the lead of Louisiana On January 1st, 2019, 12 jurors have to agree. Now, this used to be the Jim Crow law. They just passed this on January 1st, 2019. 12 jurors have to agree on the verdict of a case. The threshold previously has been 10 out of 12 votes to carry a verdict. What I am saying is Jim Crow law still exists. Just like the colonializers say, you're free, you can do whatever you want to do. No, you cannot. Just because they say Jim Crow laws doesn't exist, it still exists. Look around us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah.
3 people just got hung the other day.
I just want to, I just want to highlight on that real quick, and I'm gonna pass it to Eddie. What I like about what you said, and again, I want to just shine some light on some importance for that. You know, I had talked to you last week about how, you know, the laws of state one thing, but you people have to understand there's a difference between something being voted into law and then the law actually being enforced.
Yes.
And I think that's it's a misconception that really eludes a lot of people's consciousness. Is they say, well, the law states, it's true, but the federal law may state, but it's about what the state laws, what are they enforcing? That's a whole different scenario. As we know, for most people that had their independence in America all the way back into 1776, but yet brothers and sisters of color didn't get it until 1868. And then moving forward, the Native Americans, whose country it was before anybody even got there, they didn't get the right to become citizens in their country until 1924. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like the reason why, as you know, I'm so infatuated with history and policy and education is because that's where not only the lies are, but the truth is hidden underneath the lies.
Yes.
And it needs to be explored. It needs to be exploited.
Yes.
So that people understand what is going on. A prime example that I'm gonna pass it to Brother Eddie. You talked about in America, the pictures that you're showing. Do people understand what do civil rights mean?
Exactly.
What do civil rights mean? Think of the word civil. Civil, treated like a human being. What is civil? Cordial. The respect to have from one human being to another. The things that you were taught in kindergarten.
Yes.
Things you were taught when you were 5 and 6, 7 years old were not demonstrated to us as people of adult status in not only the 1800s, but in the 1900s, meaning that Jim Crow's equal but separate laws stood in place from 1878 all the way into 1964, 1965, and the civil rights laws were enacted. And even now, we are still seeing that some of those laws are being amended to where we are seeing just a portion of what's just due. So I think that's very important that people understand that the way laws are created, how even though they're put into law, what does it mean in terms of them being carried out and enforced? There are levels to that people need to definitely understand. And I'm gonna pass it to Brother Eddie.
And then we'll go to Brittany.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, Eddie.
Absolutely. You just took the words right out of my mouth. And I was just going to go back to 1865 when the Emancipation Proclamation was freeing the slaves. After we freed the slaves, they sent us out there. They were going to give us 40 mules, 40 acres and 40, what is it, 40 acres and a mule?
40 acres and a mule, yeah.
That's right. After they took the chains off us, they say go. We say where? I don't care. Just go. We have no education. We have no food. We have nothing. And so we're walking around the South wondering what to do. Obviously, in 1868, as you mentioned, I believe that is when the black male was able to start voting.
Yes.
Back in
as
1868.
Well.
Yes, the male started voting. But that is exactly when the Jim Crow laws were hit. So they didn't give them that much opportunity to whatever they were voting for. They couldn't be able to exercise their rights.
Yeah.
Right.
You see a lot of black people roaming around the face of this America's land, with nowhere to go, nothing to do. We are building up ourselves in our bootstraps, making things happen. Comes the KKK, putting the knees on the neck again. Okay, and so yes, the incarceration has been going on not only from the beginning of what they let us go, but until today. I was just seeing some statistics back in 2007. There was 592,900 blacks in prison. Okay, of that, it was 299,800 whites. Okay, almost 100,000 difference. Well, Obama came into the factor back in 2008, and all of a sudden, we started to feel more empowered. We started to feel things were coming around. In 2017, there was 475,900 blacks incarcerated, 436,500 whites were incarcerated. Although the incarcerations of the blacks have went down, okay, the whites have caught the blacks as far as that. Now, why is that? It's because we started educating ourselves. We started seeing the inferiority that we can presume and get into our black neighborhoods and say, we can be better. We can do better. Has it gotten better to the point where these numbers have gone all the way down? No, but you can see it's starting to progress, that we are seeing that we can overcome. Like you said earlier, we have the power. We have the buying power. We have the knowledge to make a difference.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes. Go ahead, Brittany.
And I want to touch on what Mr. Johnson said as well.
Yes.
And it's crazy to me how we are 13% of the population, but we are the most incarcerated when it comes to, that doesn't even make sense. And actually, to bring it back in total to the police brutality and police interaction, I looked up on the Department of Justice website. And on their own website, it says that African Americans, minorities, become more in contact with police and end up having, I think it was like 45%, you either are threatened or have some forceful interaction with police. Yeah. And then I was actually talking to one of my friends who is a police officer. He's brand new. And we were talking about one of the most recent cases, the man who was shot in Wendy's, Rayshard Brooks. And, we were just discussing, we watched the video. And I was like, I just want to know police officer's mindset. What are you thinking? And he went, okay, well, he's in the car, he's drunk. He's here, and he's just giving me case law after case law after case law. And I said, well, I want to look at the humanity aspect of that. I feel like they just taught you can't look at a person through just a law. I was like, he's drunk. What about that? He's telling you about Star's family. What about that? Like, where's the humanity at that aspect? And I told them, if you look at the history of the United States, police have been used to brutalize and keep the minority population under control. That is the reason why they made the laws to make it and then once you do that, you do control the voting. You do control, because it's all suppressed. You control who goes on the juries, because you have no rights to that. You get your civil liberties taken away, no matter how, drug charges, whatever. We're taking away someone's civil liberties entirely. And then if it's disproportionate already, we're only 13% of the population. We're not going to be sitting on those juries to have fair trials. Blacks are not going to have the right to vote on the new laws to maybe amend things so that we are not sitting in jails. And so something there needs to change. It's not right to target a demographic in order to give an edge to another demographic. It's not right.
That's true.
It definitely erases your civil liberties there. So I'm with you. I'm with you on what you were saying there.
Right. I want us to talk about prisons, the private prisons, and why do they have private prison? And I want to also talk about why do we think actually that they are arresting so many African Americans? You have to populate the prisons. It can't stay empty. So we're a commodity. We're still a commodity. They still found a way. We're not picking cotton today. We are in prison.
Yes.
Right.
I want to, because there's a lot of people that say, okay, they're private prisons, but what companies own private prisons, right? And most of the time, we're talking about things, but we don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, okay, they're private prisons, but do we know who these people are? So the private prison industry, most well known are companies such as Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, which has rebranded as Core Civic,
Mm-hmm.
the GEO Group and Management and Training Corp, the MTC, which own and operate prisons, jails, and other detentions facility. How much do private prisons make? Private prisons currently house approximately 22, probably more now, 22,600 federal inmates, according to the DOJ report, which translate to roughly 12% of the total inmate population. The Bureau of Prisons paid 639 million to provide prisons in fiscal year back in 2014. Imagine now how much they're making. So when you see you're going to be arrested for no reason, this is why.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
are being put into prison because the cost of you being there is approximately about $40,000 per inmate.
Yeah.
This is an industry, and this is why you are constantly being arrested because it's a business. It's a business for the court system. It's a business for the police department. They're not there to protect and serve you. They are there to imprison you. And
Mm-hmm.
one other thing I want to mention, and then you guys can take over, is that whenever you are arrested, you have to go to court with your client. That's overtime for them. The overtime is for them to pay for their school, private schools, etc., vacations. This is a system in America, and not only America, but in the world. You want to add to that, Sal?
Yeah, I do. I want to set up the discourse for everybody to go around the table and talk about so we know where we're at with this, so we can see where we're at. So let me go to the mindset first so that we can see how much of a atrocity this is. Yuri Ben Minvo, um, he was a KGB officer back in the 1900s, and he had brought to America this concept about how to destabilize America, and he basically uh, defected over here, and he talked about what Mother Russia was using, and it's a system where you demoralize people. His words exactly were this. He
Yes.
says that a person who is demoralized is unable to assess true information. So, in other words, that even if the truth is in front of them,
Can't.
when they already have been castrated psychologically, it don't matter what you tell them. They have to first uneducate everything that they've been taught their entire life to believe that
Yeah.
anything else could possibly be true. Okay, it takes 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation through social media and propaganda. So that should just let you know, if you notice the trend every generation. I believe all of us have been around for at least almost 4 decades now.
Yeah.
Think of how much things online have changed. So online is recent, but TV, the radio, like the things that we see today that in the 80s, you wasn't seeing that on TV. You weren't hearing that on radio, but now it's the norm. And why is that the norm? Because it's been standardized
Yes.
through propaganda. Um, then going to the conversation about to show how that transfers over to the private prisons. Well, keep in mind that at the time that slavery was abolished, you roughly had about 3,000, 3 million. I'm sorry, 3 million slaves. Right, correct. About 3 million slaves. Keep in mind that right now you have over 2 million prisoners. So that lets you know what happened to slavery. It just transferred over to the penal system, because the Constitution, it says itself when the 13th Amendment was ratified, that all forms of slavery are abolished except for those who are what? Property of the state.
Mm-hmm.
That's where your slavery is. That
That's
number has been transferred from the cotton fields
Right.
to the penal system. Same number of people that was required to keep the nation running back then. That's what we have, the same number of people keeping this nation running right now. And to tie in the private prisons, they make money because the government pays them $150 per day for a prisoner. $150 per day for a prisoner. That's $54,750 a year per prisoner. And why do they pay that? Because they contract out all this work that we are losing jobs in our economy. You want to know where your jobs are going? Now you know.
Yeah.
These jobs are being carried out by people in private prison where they don't have to pay these people, but they're getting paid $150 per day per inmate.
Yeah.
And they're making this money. So they're stealing from the economy. So, you know, I just want to set that umbrella up so you can understand how all these things are connected, from the social propaganda to the translation of the laws from back in 1865 all the way up to 1965 up into the present now that we have in 2020. It hasn't changed. It said that they just changed decks, but the game is still the same.
Right. And that also goes to the point of the disparity of why there's so many more African Americans inside the prison.
That's right.
Control. They're, like you said, just from the cotton field to the prisons. You know, it's just an amazing factor of that.
Yes, yes. If the audience is, I know the audience are watching. If you have any questions, you can place your questions on the comments, and one of our guests will be able to answer the question. Do you have anything to add, Brittany?
No, you guys are completely correct.
Yes.
I even was stunned to hear about the preschool to prison pipeline. You know, I don't know if you guys have read up on how they were saying that they put a black little girl in handcuffs. She was acting out at school. I think she was about 8
I saw that.
7. I was listening to that, and they put her in handcuffs acting out. I mean, she's 5 to 6.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like 5-year-olds do. And I was just like, are we serious? You know, and that the traumatizing, that's so traumatizing to a little kid. Call their mother, call whoever. Preschool to prison. And it's sad that it has to be. I often wonder, like, why is it the Black population? What have we done? You know, I do think that, I know that's kind of rogue, but what have we done to deserve, like, you know, this type of treatment? But it's easy to make us a scapegoat due to the propaganda, due to the, oh, we're here to, you know, rape your women and take your whatever. They do drugs. The propaganda is crazy, and it's not even true. And it's sad that years of this has gone on. Like, it's crazy.
I don't think it's something that we have done. I just think it's who we are as a people.
Yeah.
The power of who we are is very threatening to the white race. And we have to understand who we are as a people, especially when we come together. We are powerful beyond measure. And when you take a look at our history, when you take a look at who we are, they want to imitate. We have to understand that what they have today is what they have learned from us, is what they have taken from us. That's how they are using this superiority.
Yeah.
You could not be who you are if it wasn't for me. You understand? So we don't know our history. They know our history. And they are afraid that we will rise again. But guess what?
Mm-hmm.
We already did. We
Yeah.
already did. We
Yes.
spent 400 years from 1619 to 2019. It's done. So you're running around trying to hang my brothers and my sisters and lynch
Right.
them. What you are trying to do now, it's over. We have the power. And we are exercising our power. What you have done is that you have injected inferiority by taking away who we are.
Yeah.
But we have to, you came with false gods, you came with false education, really not education, but training us to hate ourselves, training us to hate each other, training us to separate each other. It's
Right.
over. It is done. You cannot separate us anymore. We are working with our brothers and sisters in Africa. We are working with our brothers in Latin America. We are working with our brothers in the Caribbean, in America, and the world. It is over.
Yes.
This is a new generation. Can't you see who is the audience here? My young people from Sudan, from America, they understand what is happening. You are afraid. This is why you have so much rage. Your rage, you can have all the rage you want, but guess what? It's done. We
That's
know
right.
that you're not superior because superiority comes with ignorance that you have. You see, we are no longer telling us that we are inferior and telling us that you have privilege. The only way you could have privilege is economically. How did you become economically empowered?
Right.
By enslaving us for 400 years, by colonializing Africa. It is done. We have to not rewrite, but write our history,
Yes.
true history,
Yeah.
and educate our young people. That's what we have to do. It's over. You know it's over. Because when you look at America, what do you see? There's a
Yep.
majority people of color.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
Remain scared because we took over. We're not going to take over. We took over.
Yeah.
Anyone want to add to that?
I just want to add something. Yes, as you say that they have put inferiority complex in our minds
Yes.
because we have the power of mind. Because if somebody controls your mind, your body, and everything is finished. So why can't, as you said, let's write our own history? Why can't we write more books? I read for this lady, the Nigerian lady called Shimamanda. Shimamanda has a lot of books, and she wrote a lot of things about our culture, the African culture, and how when we go to the Western world and how we we expose ourselves and how the whites see us and all these things. Why can't we write more books and let our children read more books
That's
from
right.
what we have wrote?
Yes.
And
That's right.
also, we have to make sure that we take control of the media. We
That's
have to make
right.
sure that they don't take our goods from the countries like from Africa. They take the good and then they go and make a branding kind of things that is easy to be made in Africa. But because they said, oh, let us give you money, that's something that we are struggling with. Okay, let us give you money. Let us donate for your organization. Let us give you money for your business plan. And
Yes.
then we say, oh, wow, they are coming to help us. Instead, we don't know that they are coming to control us. So why can't we have this independence? Why
Yes.
can't we not become dependent? And we have to also teach our children from childhood how that they are strong and they are also powerful and how they can change the world. And it's not only when you see a white man and then you say, oh, wow, this is perfect, this is power, this is what. And you start forgetting your brother. You go
Yes.
and tell him, oh, please, you have nothing to share. So yeah, this is something that we need to tragically change it, like from time to time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Marcellus?
Oh, I just love it. I'm just listening to everybody. I just love it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very much well pleased with uh, where we have traveled over our experiences. But of course, we have so much further to go. And as you know, for me, I just always advocate people to first focus on their mind. We have to change our philosophy on how our mind processes the information that it receives in order for us to create a change in our actions. And without changing the way we think, without changing the way we psychologically structure and break things down, it is impossible to change what we manifest with our hands. So it's just so powered. It's so important that we continue to love one another, not criticize one another, understand that we're all going through the same thing. We all evolve at different times. One thing I've always told people, and I'll say this now just because we're in a conversation, it's good to be said. Dr. Barrow, she knows about, for me, and where I come from, and my family history and my family background, and it was a rough environment. It was a rough environment, and I lost a lot at a young age, and it did have its effects on me, and it did change me for quite some time. But you know what? I had gotten to a point that you can't blame other people for your problems. I understand, we've had our setbacks. We've had the setup, whether it's economically, socially, however you want to put it, nationally. But at the end of the day, with all the information that's going around and floating around, and the positive examples that we do have, we know that there's a better way. So it's up to us to make that decision for ourselves, what we're going to do with our lives. And it's not about how difficult it is. It's about what's necessary. We either going up or we going down. You don't
Yeah,
stay in the
exactly.
middle.
Right.
Exactly. We're going into closing. Eddie, you wanted to say something in your
Yes.
closing? Or did you want to say something other than your closing?
Uh, is you talking to me? I'm sorry.
Yes, Eddie.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yes.
I'm sorry there. Yes, ma'am. I just thank you so much for putting this together. This has been a wonderful experience, and I have a different take about what we do, because I believe that because we didn't start this, and I am no way a victim, and I tell all my
That's
friends
right.
you shouldn't be a victim, because
No.
we don't expect people to you know pick us up all the time. But we do need the white people to solve this thing. I think they need to help us solve this problem of racism. They need to help solve this thing. And I always tell them, when you see your white friends, tell them to stop that snickering, stop that laughing at the black jokes, Mexican
Yeah.
jokes, Hispanic jokes, whatever jokes that is out there. You have to have them accountable. Once you make them feel about and understand what they are doing, that will give them an opportunity to go, you know what, maybe that was right. Yeah, it probably was cool to laugh at those jokes in the 70s, maybe the 80s, but now it's not cool anymore. We're
Yeah.
fighting racism together. The other thing is vote. We have to get people out there to vote the right people in office. You need to tell people to be educated. Know who you're voting for. Don't just vote Democrat. Don't just vote independent. Most of us don't vote Republican, but if you do vote Republican, know their values, know where they're coming from. Because if somebody gets in there and they're another Trump person, or somebody who keeping our knees on people's necks, then obviously we're in the same situation that we've been in before. So you must vote. And I also tell my friends this. I don't know if you ever heard Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott back in the 60s, did a lot of experience. There's a blue-eyed, brown-eye experience that talks about how they make blue-eyed kids feel like brown-eyed kids. And it's an experiment that she did back in the 60s, just after Martin Luther King was killed. And that's a great illustration to where you should tell your white friends to go take a look at that if you want to understand where we came from and how we feel. It's a great little piece of video that you can share with people.
Yes. Brittany?
I am very thankful. Thank you for inviting me on here. I love
Sure.
hearing the dialogue of dang. I love hearing from you. Like, it's been amazing.
Yes.
Thank
This is
you.
an amazing show. But same, specifically to my situation, I'd love to say, if you're dealing with people who, they're not Black and they're having problems figuring out what can I do, or what I get a lot is, well, I don't understand. It doesn't happen in my community, which,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely like to tell people, look at the basic respect and look at the basic humanity. If you cannot, if anything, that's your fellow brethren or your fellow American or whatever, however you like to say it, you need to extend that to them so you can see, hey, if they're saying that there's an issue, there's an issue. And it's human quality just to be able to reach out and be like, hey, that person's experiencing trauma, that person's experiencing something, horrible. Maybe something needs to be done about it. Just because it's not your reality doesn't mean it's not somebody else's reality. And that seems to be resonating with people because they go, oh, I had no idea. So, and I also want everyone, please focus on your mental health. There's a lot of negativity going on out there right now.
Very
So please
important.
make sure
Yes.
you take time for yourself, because watching all these people get killed, watching your people get killed, watching all this, the police, everything, just make sure you take time for yourself to make sure you are okay. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Last words, Ade? You have any last words or?
Yes, yes,
Send
yes,
a
yes.
message. Send a message. Yes, yes.
Yes, I just want to say that, yeah, racism, I always say that when you're racist, you are ugly, really ugly. Like, there is nothing beautiful in you. So I just want to say that we have to stop, we have to tell the people to stop racism. And we have to also help our brothers to stop racism, because some of them have been born like that. They don't know what they have been. They have been raised like that. They have not born like that, raised like that by their family. But when they get to know Black American and African and everybody, they get to love them more. So I just want to say that we, as African, I need to learn more about the African American history, because we cannot know everything in general. We have to know that is specifically African American history, because we are related and we have so many things in common. And in order to bring this thing into, to solve these issues, we have to come together. I remember Dr. Melida met me in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, in the African Union Commission where I work. And she came and told me, I went and I bought her book because I saw, oh, wow, a woman. Okay, I'm a feminist. I said, a woman has a book and she is beautiful. And I saw Jen is it Decor? I don't know how to pronounce it. And also he's a designer.
Feeling
And I bought
delusion. Know who you are. Yeah.
I bought the shirts, I bought the t-shirts, I bought the caps, I called people in, come, come, come. And this book had changed my life. And she had been always there with me. And she never asked me, where are you from? But she took me from where I was standing and she said, let's go to your office. And she said, what's your passion? And please, you can do it. So let's do it like that. And let's support each other. South Sudan is the youngest country, but it has a lot of potential. And there's a lot of killing of young people happening nowadays. Let's try and support and also stand with South Sudanese. And this is your brothers. And we have a lot of brothers. I have my brothers playing basketball in the US. I have my other people who are doing modeling in the US. Let's help each other. The world is one, and we are created by one God. So thank you so much for bringing me here. And I'm so glad to learn from all of you. So that's amazing.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. My last words are, I've been practically around the world traveling, and for the last 5 years. And anytime I see a brother or a sister, anyone, because this is about, you're a human being. When you talk about black, yellow, white, I feel like I'm dealing with the crayon box. God did not create me for you to define me of the color black. He did not define you as the color white. And he did not tell me that you are superior to me. And he did not tell me you have more privilege than I do. The only reason that you think that you do is because of a system you created. all of my brothers and sisters around the world, and I mean non-whites, non-whites, I have a message for you. You're not inferior. There's nothing wrong with you. A system was created in order to elevate a race. Even though that there are white people that say, I am not prejudiced. Check yourself, really, deep down. Check yourself. Just because you say you have a black friend, it doesn't mean anything to me.
It's true.
What means to me is that you stand up with us. You have been watching massacre, depopulation, murder,
Yes.
viruses that was implemented in Africa, Ebola, AIDS. Birth control pills was first tested in Puerto Rico. We have been your guinea pigs for centuries. It is over. Now it's time for us to rise. But we have to rise together. Black, white, all these colors that you so-called created. Because the bottom line is we're human beings. All of us. And we are part of humanity. And if you stand there in silence, my white brothers and sisters, then you are part of the problem. And we are going to stand up. We're no longer going to put up or deal with what you are doing today. It's done. It's over. Because at any time, the same way what you're doing to us, we can do to you. I can stay at home and turn off my television. And we can tell the world now to turn your TV off, because with your TV off, guess what? What are the commercial, those that have products? How are you going to promote it? How are these television shows is going to stand? We have power. We just not using the power. If we decide today we want to boycott one product, one, you see what Black Lives Matters have done. There are protests everywhere. You know why? Because it's not only non-whites are suffering, there are white people also that are suffering. And they have awakened. They're tired. We're all tired. There's just a small number of people in the world that's controlling the world. But remember, we are the majority. We can control the world together. Mexicans, Brazilians, Nicaraguense, Colombians, Panamanians, all of us. It's just about uniting. We have to unite. Because if we don't unite, we're going to go right back into slavery and the so-called coronavirus that you created, patented. You don't talk much about that. You're just telling us to be quarantined. We have to speak truth. That's why this show is called Love, Truth, and Peace. Thank you so much. And Marcel, I would like for you to take us to this beautiful poem that you have to share with us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Check us out.
It's my pleasure. I always have something. I always have something. I was sitting here thinking about what would I even say, but I've really been inspired so much by all of you. So as I sit here and I look at the past, present, and the future all rolled up in one, I really resonate with what Brother Johnson said when he said that, just moving forward, we need help. We got to heal from yesterday. And so this is my dedication to all of you today. I would say, dear yesterday, today I woke up without any thoughts of you. Although I do appreciate our time, it has passed. Focusing solely on your past brings clarity to your future. Now, over time, I've realized that my vision of what I can be today is greater than my memory of who I was yesterday. I have to go.
Amen.
I love it.
I tried to write it down. Send it to me.
That was good.
Well, we
Yeah.
want to thank you for
Thank
watching
you.
our show. Yes. Let us all, yes. Power to the people. I want to thank you for watching Love, Truth, and Peace. Tune in on Monday for our Spanish show at 7 Eastern Time. Please do. And next week, again, next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, and may God bless you
Thank
all.
you.
And thank
God
you,
bless
Amy,
you.
Adang,
Thank
Brittany,
you.
and our co-host, Marcelleus Hall. May
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Can you see me? In the back of life's classroom with my head down. Life turned upside down to the point I don't know which way it's up now. So I walk around with my eyes to the ground, staring at my future, wishing for some hope. It's getting harder to cope in the land of the lost. A society's illusion has my mind in the kaleidoscope choke.
Love, and it's all love for you. Truth, all or nothing but the truth. Peace, we just want more peace. I'm everything that you created me to be. I am what you created, so now it's time to show the world. Oh yeah. Love, and it's all love for you. Truth, all or nothing but the truth. Peace, we just want more peace. I'm everything that you created me to be. I am what you created, so now it's time to show the world. Oh yeah. Love, and it's all love for you. Truth, all or nothing but the truth. Peace, we just want more peace. I'm everything that you created. Love, and it's all love for you. Truth, all or nothing but the truth. Peace, we just want more peace. I'm everything that you created. Love, and it's all love for you. Truth, all or nothing but the truth.
You see me? In the back of life's classroom with my head down. Life turned upside down to the point I don't know which way it's up now. So I walk around with my eyes to the ground, staring at my future, wishing for some hope.